Okay, it is time to roll out our pie crust. It's really nice and cold. Now, if you pull yours out of the refrigerator and it feels so firm that it's going to be really difficult to roll out, just leave it sit for about 5 minutes and it will take the chill off a little bit and you should be able to roll it out. But you do want it to be very cold when you're rolling it. So I'm going to very liberally dust the work surface here. You can be pretty hefty-handed with it here. This flour is not going to get worked into your dough. It's just going to sit on the surface and really ensure that our pie crust does not stick. And if we have a lot of excess in the end, we can just kind of dust it off the pie crust. So I'm going to unwrap my pie dough here, and I'm also going to dust the top of it pretty heavily here because I really don't want my pie crust to stick to the rolling pin. Now, I prefer a rolling pin like this that doesn't have the handles. I think you have a better control. But if you have a rolling pin that has handles, I think you'll have better control if you keep your hands towards the center. And in fact, even with this rolling pin, I do keep my hands a little more towards the center rather than all the way out to the sides, because I find that you're just gonna have more even rolling. So I like to set my rolling pin right in the middle of my dough. I'm going to give my pressure across the dough, not down into the counter. So I am using some pressure and kind of telling the dough where to go, but the pressure is going across the counter. So I start in the center, I give pressure across, I come back to the center, I bring pressure back towards me. Now I'm going to rotate. Start in the center, pressure across, back to the center, pressure towards me, and rotate. And I'm going to continue rotating my dough as I roll it because this is going to help me keep it a little bit more circular, and also I'm constantly checking for sticking. If it feels like it's sticking to the counter, then I'm going to redistribute flour underneath it and make sure it's not sticking. Now, if you get to the point where there are parts of your dough that are a little thicker and parts of it that are thinner, you're going to take your rolling pin, you're going to set it right on that thick part. You're going to put your hands right isolated in that area and tell it, I want you to move this way. You're going to tell the dough where you want it to go. You can kind of do these isolated movements to get the dough to go in the direction you want it. Now, you can see my edges are not perfectly rounded off here. That's okay, we're going to trim them. If your dough starts cracking, you're just going to use the warmth of your hands and start pushing it back together. I'm trying to roll this out to be about 1.5 to 2 inches wider than my pie plate all the way around, because I want it to sit naturally down into my pie plate without having to stretch, because stretching it will make it shrink up on me. Okay, so my dough is rolled out. You can see all of those chunks of butter, all those flat sheets of butter in it. That's going to be all our flakiness. I'm going to lay my pie plate on top and make sure that it is big enough all the way around so that it can sit naturally down into the pie plate. Okay, now we need to transfer this. Now, some people, there are different methods people use. Some people will fold it in quarters. What I like to do is set my rolling pin right in the center of the piece of dough. I'm going to bring the side that's the furthest away from me and just kind of fold it over the top of my rolling pin. Now I'm going to set my pie plate right in front of it and lift this up and just kind of center that edge right over that, and then just go ahead and unroll that right over the top, okay? So now we are sitting on the pie plate. Now, if you see here, my dough is kind of stretching across. I want it to sit naturally down into the pie plate. I want dough to be touching pie plate all the way around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on one edge. I'm going to lift it up so that it naturally falls in and kind of use my hand just to make sure that that edge is touching pie plate. So I'm just going to go all the way around, lift up, let it fall down, let it sink in, and now we are sitting down all the way around. Now we need to make our edges look pretty. Now this is going to be for a pumpkin pie, so it's just a single crust pie. I'm going to go ahead and trim my edges and crimp my edges. If you're doing a double crust pie like an apple pie, you would now add your filling, add your top crust, and then you would crimp the top and the bottom together. So I like to leave about a little more than a 1/2 inch of dough all the way around, probably more like a 3/4 of an inch of dough all the way around. So I'm just taking some scissors and I'm just trimming that up to make it somewhat even. It doesn't need to be perfect. I'm just trimming off all of that excess. Now, if you're trimming this and you notice that, oh, maybe this side was really short and you don't have enough to even have any overhang over here, you can take one of your scrappy pieces of dough and just use the warmth of your hand and kind of press it in to even it out. You can always patch your pie dough. You will not be able to tell in the end if you patched your pie dough. It's totally fine to do that. Okay, so it's somewhat even all the way around. It's not perfect, but that's okay. So I'm going to take this edge and fold it under and almost tuck that little edge right inside the lip of my pie plate all the way around to kind of build up this little tall edge for myself so that I can do a really pretty crimp on it. Okay, so now that I have this tall lip all the way around my pie plate, I can do a few things. I can take a fork and dip that in flour and press it around and do a fork crimp. But what I like to do is a simple scalloped crimp. I think it looks pretty. So I'm going to get some flour on my fingers so I don't stick to the dough. I'm going to use my index finger and my thumb coming in from the outside of my crust, and I'm going to use my index finger coming from the inside of my crust. So I'm going to push the inside index finger in between my thumb and other index finger and just give a little squeeze. Now the next one's going to start right where that first scallop ended and just continue pushing this. I crimped that all the way around. Now I'm making a pumpkin pie with this, so I need to blind bake this, which means I need to bake it without its filling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick little dock on the dough, which is just pricking the dough with a fork. I'm going to take a fork and just do a few all around the bottom and then just a couple around the sides. This is going to help it stay in place and not puff up too much. Now, of course, a pumpkin pie filling is liquid, but as this bakes, those holes will kind of fill in. But I also need to weigh this down with pie weights. So you're gonna take a piece of parchment paper, or some people will use foil, but I think parchment paper works a little better. And then I'm just gonna crumple this all up just so it's a little easier to mold to the pie shell. Just like that. And then I'm going to gently set this down into my pie plate, trying not to ruin all of the pretty crimped edges I just made. Okay, now we need to fill this up with something that will hold it in place. Because we don't have a filling in here, it needs to have something to hold it in place. So you can buy pie weights. You need a few sets of them because this needs to be filled all the way up, and for some reason they do not sell them in a quantity that will fill them all up. But I just use rice. You could also use dried beans. I use this over and over again. If you could see this close up, it's very toasted because I've used it so many times. So I'm just going to gently pour this rice in here, making sure I'm not actually getting it into the pie plate. I just want it to stay in the parchment. And I'm going to spread it out so it's all the way up to the edges. And then I'm going to add more. I want it to be completely full. Okay, so the rice is filling it all the way up. That's really going to make sure it stays in place and does not shrink up on me. I have my oven preheating to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 200 degrees Celsius. And I have a sheet pan inside the oven preheating because I want to set this on a hot pan so that the bottom of my crust starts cooking really fast and makes that really, one, it makes it set really fast, and also it makes it nice and crispy. I'm going to do that for about 15 minutes, and then I will take the pie weights out and let it go for a few more minutes. I'll show you. It's been about 15 minutes, so I am going to remove the pie weights now. The crust is set enough that I can remove them so that the bottom of the crust can finish cooking. And you just got to be really careful that you're gathering all of the parchment into the middle so that you don't spill rice down into the pie plate. And then I'm going to continue baking this for about like 6 to 8 more minutes until the bottom of the crust doesn't look raw anymore, basically. And then that's it. Okay, so the pie crust is finished being blind baked. It is cooled down. I'm actually going to wrap this in foil and freeze it because I'm going to use this for my pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving. So I'll take it out of the freezer about an hour before baking to let the chill come off the pie plate so the pie plate doesn't shatter in the oven. And then I'll pour my pumpkin pie filling in it, bake it, and we are ready to go. Super, super easy. I hope that was helpful for you. If you missed the video about how to actually make the dough, you can click on the comment. It will take you back to the previous video. Bye.